And welcome to your third geography lesson. So last week we looked at how earthquakes happen and the physical effects of earthquakes. And this week we're going to be looking at the human effects of earthquakes. So I was really impressed with your work the last couple of weeks. Last week it was great to see so many of you engaging with it really well on Seesaw. And I saw some great posters for dangers of the physical effects of earthquakes. So let's jump into this week's learning. Okay, our inquiry question this week is, what human effects can earthquakes have? So we're going to begin with the knowledge quiz. So I want you to pause me now and number down 1 to 5 on your piece of paper. Okay, welcome back. So question number 1, why does the Ring of Fire have so many earthquakes and volcanoes? Is it because it is where most movement of tectonic plates occur? It has one large transform plate boundary? It is where the land and sea meet, or the crust is thinner, so it is easier for earthquakes and volcanoes to occur. Pause me now and write down your answer. Welcome back. It is the first option. It is because it is where most movement of tectonic plates occurs. So remember, the Pacific plate is a large plate and it crashes into lots of other plates, and around where its boundary is the Ring of Fire. Question 2, circle all the physical effects that earthquakes can have. You have tsunamis, avalanches, diseases, and aftershocks. Pause me now and answer the question. Yes, well done. There were 3. So there were tsunamis, avalanches, and aftershocks. Diseases are a human effect that we are going to look at today. Question 3. An earthquake is caused by a wave of energy called a tremor. True or false? Pause me. Yep, it is true. So we're going to recap in a minute how an earthquake happens. Okay, from our last unit, the Roman baths in Aqua Sulis contained a statue of which goddess? We have Minerva, Juno, Belenus, or Sulis Minerva. Pause me now. Yes, the correct answer is Sulis Minerva. So there was already a Celtic statue of Sulis in the baths, and then the Romans blended their god with the Celtic one and it became Sulis Minerva. Question 5 from your geography unit last year. Which is the highest mountain in the world? You have Mount Amazon, Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro, or Mount Fuji. Pause me now. Well done, it is Mount Everest. So give yourself a score out of 5. And let's move on to our new learnings. So first of all, we're going to quickly recap what an earthquake is before we look at the human effects. So I'm just going to read for our flowchart diagram that we looked at last week. So 2 tectonic plates moving past each other at a plate boundary. One of the plates gets stuck. Now it's usually on a transform plate boundary, so we can remember that action for transform. So it's going past and suddenly it gets stuck. Because the plate is stuck, pressure builds up whilst it tries to free itself. It puts a lot of energy into getting free, so it begins to build up. When the plate does become unstuck, the pressure it's built up is released in a big wave of energy called a tremor. And the tremor causes an earthquake. So it pushes itself, and because it's got so much energy built up from the extra effort it's put in, it suddenly goes, whoop, plates, and this causes a tremor, which causes an earthquake. So we ordered these last week, and I was pleased to see that everybody did a really good job at this. So we're just having a quick recap. So pause me if you want to read through it one last time, or if not, we're going to continue. So physical effects are those that impact the natural environment, such as on landscapes and oceans. So physical effects are natural. So what are some physical effects of an earthquake? I would like you to pause me now and jot down as many physical effects that you can remember. Okay, welcome back. Let's have a look at what some physical effects of an earthquake were. So we had aftershocks, we had landslides, we had avalanches, we had fires, and we had tsunamis. So those are 5 physical effects that we looked at last week. So in contrast to physical effects, human effects are those that affect man-made features. So these can be buildings, bridges, societies. It's how it affects people. So the human effects are things that affect man-made features. A man-made feature is something that humans have built. It's not natural. It's not created by the earth. It's something created by humans. So let's have a look, first of all, at the long-term effects. So geographers a lot split things into long-term effects and short-term effects. So long-term effects are things which are going to have a long-lasting impact. They're not going to be able to be resolved quickly. So the first thing is the loss of life. So sadly, many people can lose their lives by becoming trapped in collapsed buildings or being hit by debris. So most people who sadly die during earthquakes don't die because the ground's shaking. Very few will lose their lives due to that. Sadly, lives are lost because man-made structures fall on top of them or they get trapped somewhere. So that's usually what causes deaths. It's not the earthquake itself, it's the fact that they get trapped or something hits them. So the first human effect is loss of life. The next human effect is damaged towns and collapsed buildings. So when the ground shakes, so do the foundations of buildings, which can damage them and make them collapse. So we have a picture here from Italy in 2016. So as we can see, here is a normal looking part of the town. And afterwards, we can see the same part of the town. You can see the clock tower still standing, the bell tower. And around it, there is lots of rubble where the buildings have collapsed. So obviously, when we build buildings, we build their foundations going into the ground, because in most places, this is the most secure way to build them. But obviously, if the ground is shaking, that is going to damage the foundations, which lead to buildings collapsing. Next human effect we're going to have a look at are damaged homes. So homes that do not collapse might have a loss of power, electricity, gas, and a risk of fire from leaking gas pipes. So some houses aren't completely destroyed, like the one we can see, but they might lose their power and electricity. And you can imagine how hard it is if you had no electricity in your house. You wouldn't be able to do your home learning. You wouldn't be able to watch TV. You wouldn't be able to take a shower, anything like that, if you didn't have any of your like your gas or your services in your house. But a lot of homes are also damaged beyond repair, which makes people homeless. So this is a picture from an earthquake in New Zealand in 2010. As we said last week, New Zealand is right on a plate boundary, which is why they get a lot of earthquakes. Now, no people were killed in this earthquake, but it still has a massive destruction, as you can see on this house. So the foundations of the building will have shaken, which has led to obviously the building collapsing. And this house will probably just have to be demolished. There's not really much you can do to save it, which would of course have made the people inside it homeless. Okay, so just to recap our long-term effects, we have loss of life, damaged towns and collapsed buildings, and damaged homes. Okay, moving on to the short-term effects. So short-term effects are things which can quite easily be resolved, or they don't take as long to kind of sort out after an earthquake. So we kind of have two effects in one here, which are food and water, which are obviously very basic human necessities. But after an earthquake, survivors can struggle to get water because water pipes burst and water supplies have become contaminated. So obviously, if a water supply has become contaminated, it can be quite dangerous to drink. It might be carrying disease, which we're going to look at in a minute, or it might just be completely undrinkable. And roads and railways have debris on them. So as you saw in the collapsed town, on the roads, you couldn't drive your car through there, which would mean food delivery trucks also can't come. So food supplies can't get to people. So we've looked quite a bit at pictures from the Japanese earthquake in 2011. And here we have a picture of people queuing for scarce food resources. So there's not much food and there's not many deliveries coming in. So you can imagine that suddenly there's a big demand for food. And unfortunately, there's not always enough food to go around easily. So the first short-term effect is the lack of food and the lack of water. So another short-term effect are diseases. So after an earthquake, diseases can spread more easily because first of all, people can be crammed together in temporary shelters. So again, in Japan here, as we can see, people were coming into emergency shelters. We can see down here that people are having to sleep on the floor. So obviously, if a lot of people are crammed together in one area, diseases can spread more easily, as we've become aware of more recently over the last year about the importance of, giving distance, and if you're ill, not being near other people. But obviously, if there's been an earthquake and people are homeless and they're crammed together in temporary shelters, it's not always possible to have enough space for everybody. So another reason that disease can spread more easily is because there's a lot more wounded people, and their wounds can easily become infected. And also, food and water supplies are contaminated. This can also not help prevent the spread of disease. So obviously, if your only source of water is contaminated, you might get ill from that, which means that you could possibly contract a disease and maybe spread it to somebody else. So those were our short-term effects of an earthquake. So we had food, water, and diseases. However, there's many devastating effects of earthquakes, but there are charities out there who can help. So charities like the Red Cross, as we can see in this picture, we have the American Red Cross. Most countries have their own branch of the Red Cross. And Oxfam, especially from the UK, can help to distribute food and water and find accommodation for people. So there are usually large appeals for money after earthquakes, and people around the world donate what they can. So organisations like the Red Cross will send out appeals, and someone like you or me or your mum and dad could just click on their phone and you can donate £5, which might be able to provide food for a family for a day. And the aid gets sent to the people who need it the most, so they're able to use helicopters to fly in water and food. So in 2010 in Haiti, there was a big earthquake, and lots of different countries, including America and the UK, flew out volunteer and charity workers to go and help with the earthquake relief. And it's usually quite successful. It's obviously a bit challenging at first to get in there and get through all the debris, but usually charities play a really big role in helping communities recover from earthquakes. So I'd like you to number down your page 1 to 5. And I'm going to show you a few explanations of effects that follow on from an earthquake, and you need to decide whether they're human or physical. So pause me now and list down your page 1 to 5. Okay, welcome back. So you should have 1 to 5 written down your page now. And I'll show you an example. So a statement like this is going to pop up. So earthquake tremors can cause rocks and soils to roll down slopes in landslides. So you've got to decide whether landslides there are a human or a physical effect, and just pop it down. So yep, they're a physical effect. So by number 1, you would have written physical. This is just the example, so you shouldn't have written down anything for this one, but that's what I'd like you to do. Okay, let's get ready. We're going to move on. So this is your number 1. Earthquake tremors can cause ice and snow to fall down slopes in avalanches. Is it a human effect or a physical effect of earthquakes? Pause me now. Yep, welcome back. Avalanches are a physical effect of earthquakes. So well done if you got physical right. Give yourself a tick. As we can see here, we have an avalanche which is coming down Mount Everest in 2015. So there was an earthquake near the mountain, and it managed to dislodge lots of snow and ice, which came down it. Number 2, earthquakes can cause loss of life from falling debris, disease, or lack of food and water. So is disease and lack of food and water a human effect or a physical effect? Well done, it is a human effect. So as we can see here on this picture from Turkey in 1999, a lot of debris has fallen and their food and water supplies have been cut off. It's a human effect. Number 3, during an earthquake, many homes are damaged beyond repair or left without electricity or gas, which makes people homeless. So is homelessness and lack of electricity and gas a human effect or a physical effect? Pause me now. Yes, well done. It is a human effect. So human effect, because as I said earlier, a human effect is to do with man-made things, which like homes and electricity and gas are not natural. Question 4. The shaking of the ground during an earthquake can make gas pipes burst, leading to fires. Human effect or physical effect? Yes, it is a physical effect because it is a fire, which is a natural event. So as we can see here in San Francisco in 1906, there was an extremely large earthquake, which was very destructive. It's a black and white photo, but these smoke clouds here are coming from fires. A lot of fires were set off within the city. And number 5, if the earthquake is beneath the ocean, it can create a series of huge waves called a tsunami. Is a tsunami a human or a physical effect? Yep, welcome back. Tsunami is a physical effect. It is a natural disaster. Here is a picture from Japan again of just one bit of coastline that was hit by the big tsunami following an earthquake in 2011. So well done. Just to recap the answers. So it should have been physical, human, human, physical, physical. So well done on that. Give yourself a score. If you've not done as well as you'd like to, you can recap this lesson, perhaps the last lesson or some of the worksheets that you did. Okay, for your second activity today, I'd like you to just have a think in your head about which human effect of earthquakes is the most challenging to deal with. So first of all, let's recap what our human effects of earthquakes we thought of were. We had loss of life, damaged towns, damaged houses, food, water, and disease. So I would like you for your second activity to make a pyramid 6. Now what I mean by this is that going to make a kind of pyramid structure. So you're going to have one of these human effects on the top of your pyramid. You're going to have 2 in the middle layer and 3 on the base layer. Now the effect which you think is the most challenging to deal with is going to come on your top layer. So this is my example. I think that damaged houses are the most challenging effect to deal with because you have to deal with lots of homeless people, which is a long-term effect, and it can lead to the spread of diseases because people are crammed together. So I've gone for damaged houses at the top because it kind of leads to a lot more of the human effects. I then put these 2 water and damaged towns on my middle row. And then on my bottom, I have food, loss of life, and diseases. And obviously, loss of life is very sad, but it's what, unfortunately, during a natural disaster such as an earthquake, these sad, tragic things do happen. But for the survivors, I don't think it's one of the most challenging things to deal with. Like, you're going to have the emotional stress, but first of all, it's a human instinct to kind of have your own survival at the top of your mind. So I'd like you to do exactly what I've done. Now, I decided to have a think first about what my pyramid 6 would look like before I tried to draw it into a pyramid structure. But I would like you to pause me now, and in your notebook, I would like you to order these, try and put them in a pyramid of what you think is the most challenging effect to deal with after an earthquake, human effects, and what you think the sort of lesser 3 are, okay? So pause me now and get this down into your notebook. Okay, welcome back. I'm excited to see your answer to that on Seesaw later and whether you agree with me or have different opinions. Okay, I've got a little bit of a challenge for you now. Now, going back to mine, I obviously could explain to you on this video why I chose damaged houses as my top one and why I chose loss of life down here. I would like you to have a think yourselves. So I think, and then you're going to choose the one that you put at the top of your pyramid 6, is the most challenging human effect of an earthquake to deal with because. Now, if you'd like to, you can just write this down in your notebook, or I'm going to show you another cool way that you can impress your teachers by giving your answer to this question. So we're going to have a think about how we can use the voice recording feature on Seesaw. So I'm going to go on to Seesaw. I've got the instructions down here for how you can do it as well, but I'm going to actually demonstrate it to you on Seesaw right now. So I'm on Seesaw on my laptop. I have just clicked on the normal button where you add your work. I'm going to click to add a photo. Hopefully it'll load. Okay, so unfortunately I can't do that at the moment because my recording is using up the camera. So I'm just going to go back to my PowerPoint, and instead I will show you the steps that you can use to try and upload your photo. So you take a photo as normal, as I did earlier. You then press the microphone button, which comes up next to it. Once you've clicked that, it'll start a recording, and when the red bar comes up, it tells you that it is recording, so you will know you can begin speaking. When you finish your recording, you just need to click this green done button over here. And once you've done that, it will save, and a big play button will come up on the screen here, and you can click play just to make sure that your video makes sense and that you're happy with your recording. So you can pause this. You can do this on your phone or on your computer, so whichever way you usually upload to Seesaw, it should work. I tried to do it on my phone earlier as well, and it did work. So it'd be really great if you could explain to me why you put your human effects in the order that you did on your Pyramid 6. That'd be great to know, because it's always good that you need to have an explanation as to why you did something. You didn't just put them in a random order. You need to have a think about your thought process and why you did that. Okay, so thank you for today's lesson, everybody. I've really enjoyed it. I hope that you feel confident in telling us the difference between physical and human effects, and you've had a really good think about which human effects you think are the most challenging for societies to deal with after an earthquake. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and I can't wait to see your work on Seesaw later. Bye.